take a quarterback at pick 8. What should they do?
All right, so before this trade, they were looking like one of the teams that could potentially trade up. I think after the Niners trade, though, they kind of like all that buzz kind of fell away. Like, would the Falcons actually trade with them? Because they're kind of the next team. And would the Panthers be okay taking the 4th quarterback on the board, most likely? I mean, yeah, that's like foregone conclusion at this point. So I thought they would maybe take like a Trey Lance guy, have him sit behind 2 gloves and roll a season like that. But now it is looking like they're just going to go obviously Darnold starting. They have said Teddy Bridgewater's like open to being traded, so like that's not an issue anymore. It looks like Teddy's gone. I look at the holes. Definitely defense is always an option. You know, they drafted defense every pick last year, which is crazy just due to the mass turnover. But I think their most important position right now is left tackle. They have Taylor Moton on the right side. If they solidified the left with either, I like Sewell the most. I don't know if he'll be there, but I like him the most. And then Rashawn Slater is a pretty decent consolation prize. So I'm going them two as who the Panthers should draft. Rashawn Slater, Penei Sewell.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you on this. Like, to me, this is just a no-brainer. Just go get a tackle. Because their offense is pretty much set besides left tackle, and I would say receiver 3. But I think that the value for receivers is that you can get a guy to replace Curtis Samuel and Rondale Moore or Kadarius Toney, possibly with a high second-round pick. You're not going to get one of these special tackles in the second round. And they had Russell Okung last year, and that's not really what you want. You had Taylor Moton at right tackle, who's just a beast. You just need to get a beast next to him, and obviously Sewell would be perfect, right? But Sewell, I mean, will he be there? That's a big question mark. If he's not there, I think Rashawn Slater is the way to go. Either way, I think they have to address left tackle because I think they have a lot of young talent on their defense. I think their defense is going to grow together and get better. I think they have a pretty underratedly loaded offense, especially if Christian McCaffrey is healthy next year. Like, I think this is one of the rosters in the NFL that people don't realize is really, really close, actually. They're just the development of a couple of players away from really being a big-time playoff team or a playoff team. And hopefully Sam Darnold can play like a playoff quarterback, which is just consistently solid football, which is all they really need. So from that standpoint, I would just say go tackle and hope. And I think both one of Slater or Sewell will be there for sure, just because of the way the quarterbacks will go. And Kyle Pitts, I mean, the only way I wouldn't go tackle is if somehow Kyle Pitts is there. Kyle Pitts is there at 8, then you just take Kyle Pitts.
That would be oh man.
Right. But then what I would say for Detroit and what I would say for Miami is, you have other needs. But if Kyle Pitts is there at 6 or Kyle Pitts is there at 7, you take Kyle Pitts because he's that good. So, and Jamal brought up Brian Burns. Brian Burns is an absolute star. One of the most underrated players on their defense. And they drafted Yetur Gross from Penn State last year, who has potential as a pass rusher.
Brown,
right. Really and then they signed Hassan Reddick. Shaq Thompson's always been a really solid player. So they're deep, right. Jeremy Chin, their defense is coming. It's ready to go. It's really young. It's talented. And so from that standpoint, to me, it's just tackle. It's really offensive tackle or Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, I'm with you. So like the tackle, obviously there. Now we talk about
Matos, my bad.
So we talked about their weapons, right? We know they have McCaffrey, and when healthy, I think he's still the best running back in the league. You can say Dalvin Cook or Derrick Henry all you want. Like, I totally get it, but a healthy McCaffrey is different. He only played 3 games this year. In each game this year, I'm pretty sure he had at least 100 yards, like all-purpose yards, and at least a touchdown or 2 in each of them. Like, when he plays, he is a beast. And then on the outside, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson. The third receiver is kind of missing, but like you said, you can get that in the 2nd or 3rd round. It's not something you spend a top 10 pick on. Now, tight end Ian Thomas is there. So here's where if they were thinking, okay, maybe we'll sign a guy in free agency or we're going to roll out with our line again, they went Kyle Pitts. That would just create even more mismatch nightmares. That's for like really above average players at skill positions and would just make them so good.
To me, the thing with Kyle Pitts is it's just value. If Kyle
Yeah.
Pitts is there, you just have to take Kyle Pitts because he's that good. Like,
Yeah.
I think Penei Sewell is really, really good. I think Rashawn Slater is really, really good. Kyle Pitts to me is like the one, like, sure, like, he feels like a Hall of Fame talent. Like, I feel like that's a mouthful because that's a really lofty praise. But the guy is spectacular. So to me, if he's there at 8, you just take him. But if he's not there at 8, then the value and the need lines up perfectly. They need a left tackle, and Penei Sewell and Rashawn Slater, 8 feels like actually a great spot for both of them to go. So from that standpoint, I think it'll be perfect. And I think the Panthers are going to be really good next year. I really do. As long as Sam Darnold can play somewhat mistake-free football, just play like with a little bit, like he, instead of playing like a bottom 5 quarterback in the NFL, he can play like a middle tier, like a Jared Goff type, right? Like just a top 20, top 15, top 16, top 17 quarterback. Like, and he's got enough talent to make a couple more bigger plays than those kind of guys, like the Goffs of the world. Then the ceiling's kind of the limit for the Carolina Panthers. I don't think they'll be a Super Bowl team, but I think they'll be a playoff team.
And they're still really young, and they could go defense. Like, if there was maybe a cornerback, they could look into going there, or if they really love Micah Parsons, they could always trade down too. They're in a really prime position where they could say, okay, Washington, okay, New England, we know you guys want quarterbacks because what you have right now is probably not adequate. They could trade down with those teams, and they're kind of in a good spot where that team could probably get the 4th or 5th quarterback and leapfrog some of the other teams in like the 10s position. Like, if they wanted to leapfrog the Broncos, which they're at 9, I believe, and they could take a quarterback. We don't know about if they really, really like Drew Lock like that. So if a team wanted to jump them, they're in a prime position to trade down, maybe pick up a 2nd or a 3rd. So yeah, they are really, this Darnold trade helped them a lot with what they can do in the draft.
So 2 things before we kick it to questions. One thing I'll say in regards to the corner, I just don't think there's a corner that you take before Rashawn Slater and Penei Sewell. That's just the way I feel about it. So I just think that in terms of value, it lines up. And 2, if a quarterback is there, if I'm Carolina, I'm just saying if that quarterback's like a Trey Lance or Justin Fields, let's say it's one of them, or maybe because it seems that Mac Jones is going to go earlier, or maybe it is Mac Jones or whoever it is.
Yeah, whatever.
I'd be maybe interested. If I was the Carolina Panthers, they won't do this, but I might be interested in maybe drafting one of them because Sam Darnold is still a wild card. It's a lot to put all your eggs in that basket and pay him $20 million guaranteed because you're betting on an improvement from him that's just going to come from him removing from himself from that terrible situation. But what if he's really just that player?
Yep.
What if that situation just scarred him and he's really just that player? So you don't know. And from that standpoint, I think it's a little risky what they're doing. Obviously, taking a quarterback isn't prudent, but in terms of the way they've allocated their financial and draft cap, financial resources and draft capital, but I'd consider it if I was them.
Yeah, it could go downhill for them. I mean, instead of having consistent quarterback and drafting a guy, they're putting a lot of faith in Darnold. I mean, they already picked up his 5th-year option, so $20 million is going to him next year. So if he's not good, they could be giving up a high 2nd rounder next year and just kind of delaying what they've started, which looks like a really, really strong rebuild.
Yep.